Public Law 112-148, which authorizes the Secretary of the Treasury to strike a congressional medal in recognition of Raoul Wallenberg's achievements and heroic actions during the Holocaust. And also, according to the law, bronze duplicates of the medal can be produced for public sale. Raoul Wallenberg was born in 1912 in Sweden, and he graduated from the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, later returned to Sweden, where he began a career as a businessman, later becoming a Swedish diplomat. In 1936, Raoul's grandfather arranged a position for him at the Holland Bank in Palestine. It was there he began to meet young Jews who had already been forced to flee from Nazi persecution in Germany. In January 1944, under the direction of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, the War Refugee Board, or
to have this conversation with my grandfather. And for us, it's very important to know because we are, he was the fourth Lister Rebbe in a dynasty that traces its roots in a town called Liskin, Hungary, 200 years ago. That's when the dynasty was established. And I asked my grandmother, so how was my grandfather saved? And she looked at me and she said in Yiddish, "Der weiß nicht, der schwedische Diplomat Wallenberg." And she said it like so matter-of-factly, and this is how I grew up with the, as I grew up, I always had this image of Wallenberg saving my grandfather, and I asked him how. He got the Schutzhase, and she didn't really know much, but bits and pieces of information we managed to gather, and that remained with us. That is the story of how my grandfather was saved. When I realized that the calendar would soon commemorate the 100th year centennial of the birth of Raoul Wallenberg, I decided to establish the Wallenberg Commission, which will, with the sole purpose and mission of commemorating his birth. Because for us, Raoul Wallenberg is still alive. We know that, obviously, the chances are very, very slim that he's actually alive with us, but because there was never any conclusive evidence to prove that he's dead, we decided that let's celebrate his life. And how do we celebrate his life? By remembering and commemorating and paying tribute that who he saved. And I wouldn't be here if not for Raoul Wallenberg. And in our community, where most of the Hungarian survivors live, they wouldn't be there. And I live in a community called Borough Park. Borough Park is home to approximately 100,000 Jews. That's the same exact number of how many people Raoul Wallenberg saved directly and indirectly. Because for those that know, the ghetto in Hungary, in Budapest, was about to be liquidated. Besides the Schutzhase, where he saved approximately, I say, 35,000, the 70 or so thousand that was left was about to be liquidated, and Wallenberg intimidated the German general and prevented him from sending them to Auschwitz, threatening them with war crimes. So he saved approximately the entire neighborhood where we live, and that's what I tell people. I said, look around, you see this traffic jam? This wouldn't be here if not for Raoul Wallenberg. So I'm giving you a very long introduction, and I hope you don't take up too much time. So when we established the commission, we decided what better way to commemorate Raoul Wallenberg by having the Congress pass the Congressional Gold Medal legislation. Because that allowed us to educate members of Congress and members of the community, because sadly, those in my generation don't even know who Raoul Wallenberg is. And it's very sad, and I decided that we must remind the communities who were saved by Wallenberg so that he could live on forever. So Senator Gillibrand introduced the legislation, we worked with her staff. On the House side, Representative Gregory Meeks introduced the legislation, and former Representative Nan Hayworth was also very instrumental. And it was really a bipartisan effort, and their staffs were unbelievably helpful. And we passed the legislation, and we accomplished, through the publicity of the bill, of the legislation, to remind the world who Raoul Wallenberg was. It's a fascinating story. I'm sure everyone heard of him, but if you need more information, because of there's several movies. There's one by, I think, Richard Chamberlain, and Raoul Wallenberg, A Hero's Story. And then there's one in, I think it's in German, I think it's Good Evening, Mr. Wallenberg. Both are pretty much accurate. And there's so many books. He was such a, it's like he was looking for trouble. It's not like, he was in Europe at the time and he saw what was happening. He could have just minded his own business. And he stayed until the bitter end. They urged him, leave, and he refused to do so. He just wanted to accomplish more and more and more. And it's so sad because, we don't know what happened to him. There is no grave that the family can visit. It's just a question mark. What did they say? There's always when you want to conclude something. So it's very sad. So the coin was designed by the work with Betty, and she was unbelievably helpful. The artist there who designed it. Oh, because you gave us. I'm sorry. You gave us so many options, and it was very hard to.
Be loaded onto a train bound for a concentration camp. Shown in the background are Nazi soldiers herding Jews on the train. The inscriptions are, "He lives on forever through those he saved," and "One person can make a difference." The artist felt that this design pairs well with obverse 12. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rick.
Gary, could you maybe describe for us the changes that were made to
That's about what I'm going to do.
Gary, before you do, did Obverse 9 have a pairing with the reverse? A preferred pairing? Obverse 9?
Okay, while she's doing that, before more committee members jump in here, I want to get into technical questions, which is what Don was asking. So if you have a question that's not related to commentary on the designs, be prepared to bring that forward here in just a moment. Let's get Don's question addressed first.
No, sir, we did not have any recommended pairings by the artist.
Okay, any others? Okay. It's been our tradition to help focus our discussion on designs that we feel we want to give the most attention to, especially when we're presented with many designs, to go through an initial process where we do a quick poll, if you will, of the committee to determine to what level each design has support from the committee. And if we identify designs in this initial process where there really is no support from the committee, then we can focus the balance of our time on those that we feel we want to consider. So I'm gonna go through each design. I'll ask that each one be brought up on the screen as we go through, and I'll look for an indication from the committee if they want to continue considering any of these particular designs. It only takes one committee member to indicate an interest, and we'll put that in the pile for further consideration. If I don't see any indications, then I will set those aside, and we'll make a record of those that we set aside. So, if we can start with obverse number 1. Is there support for obverse number 1? Okay, I'm setting obverse number 1 aside. Obverse number 2.
Interest, yes. Yes.
Okay, there's interest in that. And 2A? Interest in 2A? Okay, we'll set that one aside. 6?
Yes.
Okay, and that completes that exercise. We're setting aside, for the record, on the reverses 3 and 4. Continuing consideration of 1, 2, 5, and 6. Again, I'll ask the committee to focus their comments on those designs. We will also, as we go around the table and share our comments on these.
Kind of, but I think the ones we selected on the front on the obverse is more accurate.
Okay.
The barbed wire, I hear what you're saying, and it obviously sends a very strong message of what he accomplished by allowing people to break free. but his goal, the Schutzpass was the invention, not the invention, but was what made Wallenberg famous. That was his method of saving Jews, was the Schutzpass. He was never involved in the concentration camps. So that's why I felt not to associate the barbed wire, which is so dominant in Holocaust imagery, but rather the Schutzpass. And the train is also a true reflection of history, because at some point Wallenberg physically went on top of trains and handed out Schutzpasses, trains that were on the way.
Lives on forever through those he saved would be on both. I was just thinking it might, if those two were paired up, you could replace that with Act of Congress. So that would be on the reverse of number 6. But the other reverses, the ones that were left to consider, the handing of the pass, what we're hearing from the contingency or the recipient or group or the affinity group is they feel the pass is very important. That's showing up in a couple of these different reverses. The symbology in number 5 is very well taken. I'm not sure how well that would be interpreted or how easily that would be interpreted by people that didn't know the story. But I agree with the group that the number 6, you've got the human side of the faces, the individuals that are hoping to receive a pass, as well as the others in the background that unfortunately will not receive a pass. And it's showing it from his perspective. And I think that's a very neat design feature that we haven't seen yet. So 6 has a lot of interest for me. That's all.
Thank you, Mike. We went to my left last time, so I think we'll start the motion to the right.